Hi, everyone. Welcome to another GMAT Club live session. And I think this is the most unusual but interesting one where we talk about money and how much people make after business school. So I'm with Sam again. Both of us just wrapped up recruiting, so we can safely grow our beards and not care about anything anymore. So that's been really sweet. Full disclosure: both of us are going to work in tech. Sam knows where he's going. I don't know if he wants to share it. I'm still deciding, so I haven't made up my mind yet. So we are going to talk about the recruiting process a little bit, and I think there's a lot of misconception around how much people make, how fast can you pay off your loans, and the whole ROI process. So we're going to take up all of those things and maybe then some. And yeah, so let's kick it off. I want to talk a little bit about different industries and how much people make across different industries. So we'll start with the industry that Sam and I really don't know much about because we didn't really recruit for them, which is finance, right? So Sam, why don't you start off and tell me what do you think?
Sure.
You recruited a lot in finance.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that. Now, from what I know from friends, I think the salaries are very high.
Yeah.
I think the signing bonus are not as high as tech, and
Yeah.
neither is the stock sign on.
Yeah. You don't get stock though, right?
I don't think so, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big thing with that is heavy salary comes like a million work hours, and so when you really look at what's your average per work hour, it's actually a lot lower than maybe even CPG companies average.
Oh, for sure. Maybe even less than Starbucks. But so I think one of the things that I was pretty curious to see was finance is very different. You have, like IB roles, you have private equity, hedge funds, and also then you have corporate finance, private wealth management. It's very diverse. So I think the highest paying roles are still IB and PE.
Yeah.
And I think I think Sam hit the nail on the head. You don't get a lot of upfront money, but the end of your bonuses for them end up being the most of their salary. So I think for most finance salaries, I think you're looking at maybe like a 130, 140 base, and then your bonus can go up to 100% of your base salary, which is where most of your money is going to come from.
I think IB's higher. Like if you do investment banking, I think it goes towards 160, 170.
Right. And especially if you stay there longer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe your first couple of years, you're not going to make as much, but as you, build your loyalty and actually work on deals where you earn a fat commission, your pay gets a lot higher.
I think with finance, I think a lot of the times people going towards finance overlook the corporate finance route and just want to shoot for IB. And I think places like Amazon, maybe Google and Microsoft pay a lot for the corporate finance roles.
Yeah.
And with that, you get the tech lifestyle, the tech hours, but you still get to handle like $1 billion worth of products on your P&L.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, both Sam and I networked a lot with Microsoft, and we felt that some of the finance people we met at Microsoft actually knew a lot about the product.
A lot of them knew more than some people on the tech or marketing side.
Well, I mean, for sure, absolutely. And maybe they don't make as much money as IB folks, but hey, I mean, you can't put a price on having to being able to sleep on your own bed at night.
I mean, I think the one guy that we know, he was finance for Azure for cloud, and he literally had a $40 billion product line.
Yeah. I
mean, he was watching out for it. Like it's a lot of impact, a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he's not doing the P&L for the whole thing, but he knows a lot about the nitty-gritties, the ins and outs of the full portfolio. So you get to learn a lot more on the macro level, which a lot of product people often don't get to. All right, enough about finance. Let's jump into things that we've actually done. So both Sam and I recruited heavily in tech. So we'll start tech first because that's going to be the bulk of our discussion. And then we'll end with consulting. And I know that most of the people who are watching are going to recruit both consulting and tech. So I think that's going to be one of the famous ones. I'm just checking in how many people are posting questions and watching. We have about 50 people watching, which is pretty cool. All of you are if you end up going to business school, it's pretty safe. But I'm going to start the conversation with tech around functional differences. So tech can be very different. You can be a product manager, which seems to be, it's like the IB of finance. It seems to be like where everybody wants to go to. But again, it's super prestigious. It's pretty difficult to actually get it, especially if you don't have a tech background. So Sam, like I know you do not have a tech background, but you hacked your way into tech pretty easily.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more before we jump into the money and the dollars, how you did that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, non-tech background, but a lot of tech interest and passion. I started before MBA. I did a pre-MBA unpaid internship with a startup, a chatbot startup.
Right.
And when I came to Ann Arbor, there's a lot of cool tech startups in Ann Arbor, and I took on a part-time job. But I knew that I needed to shift towards probably the marketing side at first because I didn't have the engineering degree and didn't have the full out coding skills. So marketing and product marketing was really going to be my way to get into the door at first and then potentially transition later. So I think it's about being ambitious, but also realistic with your background. And when they say show your tech passion, I thought actually doing it, not just doing the clubs, but that part-time job, it actually gave me a lot to talk about, but people loved it. They said this is a really unique thing that somebody did to try and show that they're passionate about it.
Which is also something to say about, like you can, for people who want to transition their careers, it's not easy, but totally doable. But you have to put in the work to actually get it done, because I see a lot of people at Ross and other business too, who say that they want to switch careers, but all they're trying to do is get the job, but they're not going to get the job because you have to really demonstrate that you can actually get it done.
And I think on that, for me, it was a little easier to do that because I have the work. I'm a citizen of the United States, so I can work.
Yeah.
I think for international students, there's a ton of professors that are hooked into startups and doing it on their own, and that would be a way to kind of get around the door and get around that authorization to get something on your resume in that first semester. And really show that. I mean, I thought that out of all the experiences that I did, I thought that was the most impactful on the recruiters' minds about me trying to say, hey, I'm a tech person now.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, this is where tech also differs from finance and consulting. Finance, apart from corporate finance, they actually don't expect you to be into finance as long as you have taken the core courses and as long as you show enough problem solving skills. And same for consulting. When they recruit for associates or consultants coming right out of business school, they know that in your first year you're not going to know anything. So they know that the first year is going to be a lot of grind, they're teaching you the ropes. But for tech, I think the expectation is that you produce from your first day, right? So not knowing anything about tech could actually be a pretty strong impediment of getting the job.
Yeah. And with tech, it's not as a defined recruiting path. It's kind of, people say it's the Wild West or whatever, but I think it's open to really create a very unique path towards it and really show a unique story about why you're not only interested in it, but how you've shown that you're interested in it. And a lot of people just sit there and wait for the tech companies to come.
Yeah.
I didn't, you didn't.
Yeah.
I think that was a strong reason why we had success.
Yeah, that's also one more thing. And this is probably the content for the next video. We will do one more video on how to actually get the job you want. And I wrote a few articles about that, but it seems like nobody cares about reading. So we'll do one more video, okay? We'll do that. But let's talk about money, okay? We are getting some questions around after taxes salary. I mean, you can just run our numbers with the post-tax calculator, but we'll touch on that a little bit too. All right, so let's talk about tech. So let's talk about product manager salaries first, because those end up being on the higher side. So I recruited for most of the tech companies that come to campus and sponsor international students because I am an international student. So let's start with a few companies that are very similar in their offering, which is going to be things like Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon. So these are all FAANG, which is like a weird way to flex, I guess. So I guess if you're looking at product management roles right out of MBA, regardless of your experience, you're going to make very similar money. Even if you have worked for 3 years or 11, it's not going to make a huge dent. The base salary for each of these companies you're looking at is going to be around 140 to 150, subject to negotiation, I guess. Some companies will be on the slightly bit lower side. Some companies will have more flexibility to increase your base salary, right? So it's going to be around 140 to 150. You'll have a sign-on bonus, and this is where companies sort of start being very different. For example, Amazon would give you a really high sign-on bonus, which will vest in 2 years, right? And it would be pretty high. It would be like around $80,000 to $100,000, and it'll vest 50% on your first year and 50% on your second year. Google and Apple and even Microsoft, on the other hand, won't do that. They will give you about 40, 50 for your first year, or second year, you get nothing, which makes sense because you're not really signing again in your second year. And then there's another component to your salary, which is stocks, which is called RSU, or restricted stock units. So basically, it's like almost like options. So they give you a stock which vests after an actual period of time, after which you can sell and actually get that money. Most tech companies will give you stocks of like $140,000, $150,000. And most of them vest in 4 years. So you get a quarter of it in your year 1, you get a quarter of it in your year 2, and so on. So that's basically what the salary is going to be. If you total all of them together, you're looking at a total comp of like $200,000 to $220,000 in your first year, and in your second year you start with bonuses. So most of the companies will pay you maybe like 10% of your base salary as a bonus, 10 to 15%, and your base will not increase by much, but that's how you make your money. So that's tech, product management. Sam, do you have anything to add?
I think the only thing to add would be to not to ask the recruiter, but once maybe get in the doors, or to ask alumni about how historically their bonuses have gone out. Because I know that there's some companies that prefer to kind of pay you up front in the signing.
Yeah.
And then there's other companies that
even Amazon.
Amazon's one of them. The top ones usually do that at the start.
Yeah.
Whereas other ones don't give as much as Amazon on the front end. But I know that their philosophy is to make it up on the back end with end of year cash signing and also end of year stock refreshers.
Like Microsoft.
Yeah. And so I think it's key to if you have options and your total comp over the 2 to 4 years is very important to you, to figure out what is that actual, to take all the factors into consideration.
Yeah.
Because when you factor that in, one of the ones that doesn't give as much up front, in the end could be making the similar. And then if you really like that company over the other one, you may be making a bad choice when you didn't take. So I would just ask people in your alumni network, people you meet indoors, about bonuses and stock refreshers. Because I think that's a key thing to know for your totals.
Yeah. Somebody's asking me, where can I find those articles? Hey, GMAT Club, dude, like just search. But that's fine. I'll try to put it up on the comments later in the day for this video for easy finding. Let's talk about other tech roles, other companies. What about product management for other companies apart from like Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon?
I think it's just, the salary is going to be slightly lower from what I can tell.
Yeah.
It's not, your FAANG companies are 140 to 150.
Yeah.
So they're high end. I think the other ones are around 130s.
Yeah.
Like you're maybe like an Adobe, a Microsoft,
Zillow, maybe.
Zillow, top companies in that, they're around in the 130 areas.
Yeah.
I think that for those ones, the sign-on is a little lower.
Yeah.
30 to 50. Stock, around the same.
Yeah.
But again, like this is the money aspect. There's other features and elements you look for.
Yeah, we'll get to those.
Yeah. But for cash, for stock compensation, or for your compensation, that's kind of the zone that I've seen.
Yeah, but I think one of the things to mention is that there are a lot of startups that pay just as much or even more to get you there, because they know that like Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, they have the resources to throw money at you. So, and they want that talent, so they have to get them, as opposed to consulting, which sort of which doesn't really care as much about talent, but problem-solving skills, and they can take care of the rest. Once you join the firm, they will make you better as long as they know that you can solve problems and you're analytical. I think that's where tech and consulting are so different.
And I think the other thing is a job in the Bay Area is probably going to get you 10 to 15,000 more on salary. That's trying to compensate for the cost of living.
Yeah, but they don't though.
But they don't, right? Like that doesn't really do it. But that's what you can expect. Probably 10 to 15,000 more if it's the job in the Bay Area.
Yeah, just a quick caveat. I mean, I did have a tech background, and I worked in a tech startup. Prizes to guess which one. But I realized when I was applying for internships, I worked my butt off to network with Microsoft, and I got an interview there. But apart from Microsoft and Apple and maybe a few on-campus companies, nobody really cared about me. And I had a really hard time getting interviews. I was very lucky in my internship, which, by the way, I spent my summer at one of the FAANG companies at the Bay Area. But I got very, very lucky. It wasn't because I was getting so many interviews and it was just one of them. However, when I came back from that company and back to my second year, I suddenly started getting all kinds of interviews. Like I didn't really have to put in any work to get those interviews. I think that goes on to show that if you have big names, especially in tech, it sort of really, really helps. Consulting, on the other hand, are significantly more open to getting people to the door, regardless of whether you have worked in a not-for-profit or whether you have worked, Peace Corps or whatever. As long as you're analytical, there are so many of my friends who have done nothing remotely close to consulting, but ended up in top consulting firms. So yeah, that's sort of the difference. Consulting is a little bit standardized. Tech is a little bit snobby, but sort of works out in the end. So I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go to other tech roles too. We are running a little bit late. We have 10 more minutes left, but I do want to talk about other tech roles. But before that, you touched upon something that I am having trouble deciding, which is Seattle versus Bay Area. And as I mentioned, it's true that when you're in Bay Area, you're probably making just a little bit more money. And, but the Seattle and Bay Area has a lot of different challenges. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in full disclosure, I'm biased. I think I like Seattle more. But I think that the Bay Area has a much higher cost of living.
Yeah.
I think that finding the same quality of apartment, residence, and also comfort is going to come at a lot higher expense in the Bay Area. I think the exit opportunities, which are huge, are equal. I mean, it's always going to be a little bit more in the Bay because there's just more companies and there's a little bit higher prestige. But Seattle, I mean, all the big Bay, your FAANG companies are going to Seattle with big offices, poaching from other companies. And there's a ton of, and you can't even call them startups. There's a ton of great other companies there too.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bay Area companies compensate enough for the negatives of it over Seattle salaries. But that's coming from me, and I've got a bias lens towards that. What do you think?
I mean, I disagree a little bit because I know someone who worked in the same company that I did, and she moved to another FAANG, and they just made it rain for her. Like, I think she was, maybe 7 years out of business school, and can't really talk about which specific company, but they sort of know that unless they really, I think her total comp was very close to being 7 figures, and so
but that also can come in Seattle.
That's true. That happens in Seattle too. I think one of the other challenges that I had with Seattle versus Bay Area is that if you want to work for Microsoft or Amazon, well, Seattle is the place to be. I mean, they have offices in the Bay Area. I think a lot of Echo and Devices offices for Amazon are in the Bay Area. But if you want to work for Google, I've often heard recruiters saying that, hey, like, look, even if they're poaching someone from Seattle, they sort of say that, hey, we want you to be in Mountain View because there's a lot of different teams there, more mobility and all of that stuff. So it's a question of whether you want to do it. But in my opinion and from my analysis, I think looking at post MBA salaries just by going to Seattle from the Bay Area, you're actually saving up at least $20,000 to $30,000, all else being the same. So that's sort of what it is. So if you have a company in the Bay Area that was willing to pay above 30 grand, maybe it doesn't make sense. But you take other stuff into account, like where do you have family, where do you have friends, and where do you see yourself getting the best coffee, which is, I guess, where Seattle wins. But
I mean, I think the whole story, this long story short, is that just what the salary number says on the offer is not the total picture. You have to really look at the inclusive package of living in that area. You know, Austin is another example. Maybe Austin's not going to come with FAANG Bay Area salary, but when you factor in cost of living, now you can say, hey, which city do I actually want to be in?
But would you do that right out of MBA? Like, for example, let's say you go to Austin and you make like 40% less than you would, then isn't your base and your total comp restrict you from being pushed to a significantly higher comp?
I mean, I think yes, in a way. I think that Austin still has to pay. I don't think it's going to be necessarily 40% lower on a salary, because Austin knows that you have options in the other cities and they have to be more competitive. I mean, I take the approach of money is not the only element, and maybe not even the most important element, in picking the company that you want. So I think you got to weigh the other things. But within the money aspect, there's all sorts of things about some states in America don't have state income tax, like Texas and Washington, where California does. So that's another 10-ish% off your salary. So just take in everything. I don't think there's a magic which one is better. I think you literally have to be very diligent about the numbers and do a good calculation.
So I do want to take a few questions, but we want to jump into consulting. This is super easy because consulting pays the same for every single firm. I mean, minor differences, but it's a lot of the same. So for consulting, you're looking at like MBB and then everybody else. So MBB would pay you, from what I know, about a 160 base and maybe a 30 for sign-on, and that's about it. You'll have an end-of-year bonus of maybe 20, 30, depending on the percentage and how many flights you took for the whole year, I guess.
Delta Sky Miles.
Yeah, the Delta Sky Miles is directly tied to how much money you make. No, but you're looking at, again, very similar. You're looking at like 210 total comp, depending on which state and how much your taxes are. And then for the second category of firms, again, they pay very similar. You have companies like A.T. Kearney, Deloitte, whatever am I missing? EY maybe, Accenture. And they all pay extremely similar money, and all of them actually pay the same as MBB. So I don't really...
Maybe more sometimes.
You know what? Sometimes more. Some companies will have a slightly higher base than MBB because they want those people to come there, but what are you kidding? So the other stuff also is that Deloitte has this weird thing. I mean, doesn't apply for international students, I guess, because they don't sponsor anymore, but Deloitte has this really cool thing that if you intern with them, they pay for your tuition. Like, holy shit, that's like an extra 100 grand, which is awesome. A lot of people do that, golden handcuffs. But then you work for Deloitte. So that's consulting salary, super straightforward. So I'm going to take a few questions, and then we're going to say goodbye and come back for a recruiting video sometime next week or the week after the holidays. So where can I find those articles? Okay, I already answered this. Audio is not okay. Water under the bridge. How hard is it for international students who cannot get into top 30 to make as much money as someone from a top 5 in the same industry, as such as finance, tech, consulting, and management? Okay, from your name, I can feel that you're Indian. It's a common practice in India to pay different salaries based on which school you came from. That doesn't happen in the US for the most part. Regardless of whether you're coming in from a top 50 or a community college or HBS, if you're going for the same job, you're probably going to make the same amount of money. However, where it sort of plays into differing is how much leverage you have. So if you're coming in from a top business school, it could be safely assumed that you have multiple offers. and that gives you more leverage. Not the fact alone that you went to a great business school, but what it did for you in terms of your recruitment choices. So that's there. Then we have every international student get work sponsorship. No, they don't. You have to find a company that's willing to sponsor, and it's getting a little bit more challenging. There are more tech companies that sponsor, but it's a lot of them are case by case basis. A lot of consulting companies do not sponsor anymore, but the ones who sponsor, they're actually very kind. So even if you don't get an H1B, they put you to, I don't know, like Europe or Canada, bring you back on L1. It's a very standardized process. What's the usual salary difference from, okay, I lost it. Yeah, from an MBA between the US and the Western Europe? I think this is two questions hidden in one. I guess you're asking is, what's the salary difference if you work in the US and graduate from a US business school versus work in Europe from a US business school? Or you could also mean that you went to a European business school. Regardless, your salaries in Europe are going to be significantly lower, man. I'm sorry. It's probably going to be a 20 to 30% haircut, but keep in mind that you're also paying significantly more in taxes. You're paying like almost half your salary in taxes. So,
but quality of life may be better.
Quality of life is so much better. Both Sam and I went to Berlin for our summer, and we want to spend the later parts of our life there. Quality of life is so much better. Education is better. So if you want to start a family there, education is so expensive in the US, it's ridiculous. Healthcare is cheaper, much cheaper, almost free in most cities. So take all of those things into account. Consulting salary, quite already answered this. How about supply chain management consultants? There's nothing called supply chain management consultants. Most consulting companies in US business schools would hire you as generalists. And even if the consultant firms hire you for special functions, it's not going to be any different. You're going to probably make a little bit less money, but that depends on the firm, not your function. EY, for example, has very different specialized practices, but they all make the same money. Consulting versus tech product management salary. Okay, I can go on a rant about this. So, but my short answer is this, and Sam, like, differ with me if you want. Tech product management pays more in your first couple of years, which will make your consultant friends very jealous. However, if your consultant friend is actually a good one and is racking up those sky miles and becomes a partner in like 6-7 years, yeah, he is going to make more money than you. But however, very few people actually end up making partners, right? And very few tech PMs actually get promoted to like director, VP, whatever. So I guess in the end, it's very similar. But consultants also have really good exit opportunities in a very different set of industries. Like, for example, you could go work for manufacturing. However, if you go to tech and you really hate tech and you want to go somewhere else, your skills may not be as transferable. But why would you do that? Anyway, any comments on general management position and salary? Good question. Sam, do you want to? I think it's very similar, right?
I think it's similar. I think you're talking,
yeah,
what I can tell, 120, 130 on
yeah,
the salary.
Yeah.
The stock and the signing comp is not going to be as high. You're talking about 20 to 30 grand for each, maybe.
Yeah. You may not even get stock for most of them.
Yeah, you may not even get stock. But if it's a big company, like a name company that's public, you're going to get some stock. I mean, I know one of them in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about 120, 20 to 30 on the stock, 20 to 30 on the sign-on. So, yeah.
So somebody asked, bro, okay, no. Bro, when should I take GMAT for MBA September? This is a question for the forum or the chat room. So go there and ask this question. But for MBA September 2020, most schools actually start in August, not September. And the class of 2022, which is, I'm guessing what you're asking, they're already applying, bro. The round one decision just came out. So you don't have a lot of time left. You should take the GMAT 3 months back. Or if you want to do round 2, take the GMAT tomorrow. Because the applications are due in 2 weeks.
I think the big caveat to this whole video is that money is just one aspect of what you decide to take.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other factors. And from my experience, and at least my personal opinion, I think the other factors are more important to what you're going to be enjoying for the rest of your life. So,
Yeah.
This is just one aspect. It's definitely serious and it definitely means a lot. But definitely don't overlook the other factors.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for doing this. You're welcome. What are profile points that I consider considering a year ahead of me before I apply an interview? Try to get a pre-MBA internship. I think that's something that's super useful. Try to get it in the function that you're trying to go to. I'm a dentist in Indian Railways and want to pursue MBA in healthcare from Columbia. What are the scope and expert challenges, salary, and growth prospects? Thanks. Depends. I think regardless of whoever you are, you can always do consulting. That can always happen if you do your casing well, network your way through.
But healthcare is, again, it's about 130-ish on salary.
Most healthcare firms would be similar.
About a 30 sign-on.
Yeah.
And stock, from what I know, I wasn't hearing people were getting stock, but it's about 130 and 30.
Yeah, things like Baxter would pay that much money, and you can also look at the healthcare consulting space.
Yeah.
EY has a practice, ZS has practices, so you can try doing that
and
too.
And that gets you your consulting.
How about finance? You have to rewind the video, man. We talked about finance at the beginning. Although we have to say, like, our finance knowledge is like a little bit limited because both of us are speaking from second-hand information.
With finance, again, just make sure you're splitting it between IB, private wealth, and then corporate finance. Different salaries, but also different other things that are part of the work. So make sure you're splitting it.
That's true. All right, we have to bounce. I'm gonna go back to school and do some interviews. And so it was great. We're gonna do another video. We have 2 on the pipeline. The first one is how to actually do recruiting and be successful. And I have some failures to talk about and some successes too. And then we're gonna do another video on what Sam was sort of alluding to, like what are the different factors that you consider for your long-term goals and what you really want to do. So stay tuned for those. It's going to be on YouTube, but we're still figuring out the schedule with the holidays coming in and everything. But thanks so much for joining. There are around 50 people watching. I can't take more questions. Sorry about that. But if you have questions, feel free to post on the forum. There's like an army of people out there helping you out. So go there and do that. And the chat room is always pretty good for casual questions too. Thanks for joining. We'll come back again very soon.
Thanks all. Bye.